views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try.
Hello, Patty Hunter here, and today my show is called, and it always has been, Patty's Page. Hey! Anyways, I'm in a good mood today. Because we have some wonderful people on my show this week. And this is my co-host, John Dickmeyer.
Oh, how gorgeous you are today.
Really?
Yes, you are.
Hello, and this is Todd Harrold, who is a singer, and what else?
I play drums, got a radio show, teacher. I teach drums. That's what I do. I'm a dad. I'm a husband.
Oh.
Yeah, you know.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
So you're also a lead singer?
Yep. I play drums and sing. I think it's a kind of an unusual thing. There haven't been a lot of people that did that.
Well, Ringo Starr did.
A little
the
bit.
Beatles.
You don't really think of Ringo's vocals, though.
How
The
about
Beatles,
Phil
you think Paul and
Collins?
John. Phil Collins didn't actually play drums and sing at the same time.
Oh, well then I stand correct.
That's all right. There was a guy named Buddy Miles.
Oh, Buddy Miles.
He played with Hendrix, and Lee Von Helm with the band, and Don Henley with the Eagles, to a certain extent, although I don't think Don Henley plays drums anymore.
You have your own band?
Oh, yeah. I have since 1991.
What's it called?
Well, Todd Harrold Band. I actually, for the past couple of years, I've just been doing a duo with a keyboard player, a younger guy named Nick Bobet, and when Nick can't make it, I have another keyboard player that I work with named Eric Clancy, and they're both really excellent players.
I've heard of that name, Eric Clancy.
Oh yeah, Eric's been around for a long time. Eric and I have played together for about 20 years, off and on. But I work every weekend. We probably play 130 to 150 shows a year, and not everybody can keep up with that pace.
So
and with a family or whatever, you don't want to be gone every weekend. Although
You
my
do
family
tour?
doesn't really mind.
You tour?
I did in the 90s. I toured a
Right.
lot in the 90s. I've been with 4 different record labels.
Oh, really?
And for a while there, I was out on the road pretty seriously in the late 90s. But that's different than people think it is. The whole getting a record label. You still have to do a whole lot of work, and it doesn't really pay you. It's kind of the opposite, actually. It's just they sort of push you in different directions. I had one really good experience with a label, but they sort of collapsed after the first album came out.
They collapsed?
Well, they kind of the money got pulled out, but the other ones were like, you spend your whole life thinking about or conceptualizing what it is that you are musically, what it is that you want to do musically, what it is that you have to say, and then these people, it's like you go to a bank and you get a loan. It would be correlatively, if you go to a bank and get a loan for whatever you want, and then the bank tells you what you're going to spend your money on. That's kind of like what a record label's like. They spend a lot of time saying, okay, we want you to sound like this and this and this, and
make you.
Right. This happens a lot, and then there's a lot of pressure on you to sound like something other than you, and there's a lot of and you really have to work really hard to sell yourself, because there's anymore the record industry has kind of collapsed as well. But back in the 90s,
that's when they're big.
Yeah, the 90s were huge. The 90s were really selling a lot of product in the 90s, and I was with a label that really wanted me to conform a lot more to what was popular at that time. And I had this happen again in 2009, where they really wanted me to conform to something that I really didn't feel good about at all. And when you fight them on things like that, you're not very popular.
Do you have your own business?
Well, I
Really?
have two. I do the band, and then I teach. I'm
You
a
teach.
private teacher. Yeah.
Private teacher. It's basically what instrument? Drumming?
Drums,
or-
yeah.
Drums.
Yeah, I teach drums. Yeah. Yeah, I've had some vocal students, but mostly it's the drums. I take the drums very seriously. I've played pretty much every day since I was 13 years old. And
And
I'm 53.
53?
Yep, 53. I was I started playing drums in 1976 when I was 12 years old. I actually started playing on the couch a year before that.
Oh, boy.
You know, my mom worked at the school. I went to Cherubusco. I grew up in Cherubusco, and my mom worked at the school and convinced the band director to loan us the drum set for the summer since nobody was using it, and we lived a couple blocks from the school, and I got that home, and there's pictures on my website of me playing the drums in the late '70s with my Eagles Hotel California T-shirt on, and I'm, you know,
What's
the
your
enormous hair.
website called?
ToddHarroldMusic.com.
ToddHarroldMusic.com. That sounds good.
Real interested. Were you the one that was motivated to play the drums
Oh, absolutely.
from first?
Well, see, I got really interested in music when I was probably 6 years old. My uncle, I remember my uncle buying, March of 1970, my uncle bought me the Let It Be single by the Beatles. And I wore that out, both sides. And I can tell you every note on that even now. And from there I got into my father's record collection, and he was into jazz, and my grandmother's record collection, and she was into Nat King Cole and Harry Belafonte and Burt Bacharach. And so I started listening to all this music. And so by the time I hit the drums, I had already tried to play guitar, I'd already tried to play piano, and I'd already tried to play trumpet, and I was really awful at all those. And I can play guitar and piano now, but just enough to show the band what to do, and then I'm
Like
out.
the notes, where it starts
The
out.
chord,
with
this
C or-
chord, I want this
yeah,
chord, you know.
yeah.
And but by the time I got to the drums, I remember when I set up the drums, I remember being able to play along with records and thinking, wow, this is awesome. And I still do that. I did it last night. You know, I still do that every day. I still play every day. Absolutely every
Who
day.
influenced you to become a drummer?
Um,
Your mentor? Do you have a mentor? Or?
Well, I have a lot. I mean, I studied with a whole lot of different people that really meant a lot to me. I didn't have any lessons at all. I was taken to a drum teacher when I was probably 14, and I wanted him to teach me, on the second lesson, I wanted him to teach me how to play this groove off this Herbie Hancock record, a song called Chameleon. That was an album that came out in '73, and I heard it like in '77, I think. And he looked at me like I was nuts. He didn't understand what this was and why I would want to play this music, and he really wanted me to do something else. And so I didn't go back. I wanted to, and that is something that I really remember when a student comes in and says, "Can you show me how to do this?" Whether I'm into it or not, whatever will stoke your passion for playing drums,
Right.
that's what's important.
Yeah.
Not what I want you to do, but what you want to do, what you want to say.
So you're just there to.
Right. And then when I got into college, I realized how far behind I was. And I started taking lessons I went to 3 different colleges, was sort of going here and there, trying to get the most information that I could. But I started taking lessons with Earl Yowell, who is now the principal timpanist with the St. Paul Symphony Orchestra. He was
wow.
He was with the Fort Wayne Philharmonic at the time. And he's a great teacher. But he wasn't really a drum set teacher. So I started really searching out drum teachers. And anytime there was a place here in town called the Percussion Center that Neil Graham ran
I've heard
over
of
on
that.
Harrison,
Yeah.
and he would have people come in and do clinics, and I would go in and hassle them and say, "Is this guy going to give a lesson? Can he give any lessons?" And I would, and in particular, there was a guy named Carl Allen, who was later a teacher at Juilliard, but at that time he played with Freddie Hubbard and Woody Shaw, and a great jazz drummer. And I'm never going to be a jazz drummer. That's not my thing.
So your genre is.
But the whole thing about being a serious musician and what you needed to do and what the approach needed to be was Carl, really. really set that up for me. And then there were many other people. I moved to Chicago, and I would go to see everyone. There was a place called the Jazz Showcase that was on the corner of Michigan and Balboa at the Blackstone Hotel. And I would go there, and you could literally walk up to these people who were like legends and talk to them. And that's exactly what I did. I would go there. I went to Chicago and went to the American Conservatory on Michigan until my money ran out. And it was about, I guess it was about a year. But I would go to the Jazz Showcase every week, and I would talk to everybody. And if I could hustle a lesson with them, I would do that. So there's a lot. There was a guy I used to drive to Atlanta when I was more of an adult, when I was in my 30s. There was a guy that I was really impressed with named Jeff Sipe that lived in Atlanta. And he had a really interesting spiritual and intellectual approach to the drum set that I really missed in other places.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a yogic aspect to it, the way your body worked, the ergonomics of how you played. I was really into that, so I would drive down there for once a month, and I've studied with different people, and so they all added up to what that and everything I listened to, which was everything. I just tried to listen to everything I possibly
You
could.
have on your T-shirt, Frank Zappa.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is he your favorite then?
No, not particularly. It was just this was the shirt that was on top of the,
On
you know. Yeah, it could have also been, a number of different, because my whole thing is, I like what you would consider eccentric T-shirts. I'm not trying to. If I'm gonna advertise something,
Right.
I want to advertise something that I believe in,
Yes.
not just shoes or something.
So, when you started out in music, basically you are jazz, right?
I don't know.
What are you?
Soul music. I like soul music. I like all kinds of music, but I think that I'm primarily. I don't really think of myself as jazz. I think of Miles Davis being jazz or John Coltrane being jazz,
But you
and
have
I
your
don't
own
play that. I'm a
style.
singer. I'm
Yeah.
a singer, and I'm more of. I like pop music. I like R&B music, soul music. I like some rock and roll. I like a lot of rock and roll. But I'm just sort of a collector of songs. If I hear a song on the radio that I really like, there's a way for us to interpret. I'd like to think of myself as like an interpreter. So in that sense, I might be a jazz musician in that there's more of an interpretation than there is a literal note-for-note recreation of things. I'm not into that. I don't want to do that.
You write your own.
Sometimes, not really anymore. I've done probably 10 albums.
Oh.
But I don't really do that anymore.
You won awards. What's up? Whammies?
Yeah.
How many?
I think I've got 10 of those.
10 of
8 or
those.
10, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
They're all on the wall. I'd have to count them. My wife put them all on the wall. So, and it's cool. It's great. And those were actually jazz because they didn't know what to call me. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
they
not.
don't-
I'm not
they
Kiss, and I'm not an African American. So they were slow to put me in the R&B
Slot. They put
slot.
you in a
But that's
slot.
really where my heart is in soul music. In particular, I came up listening to Bill Withers and Gil Scott-Heron and Boz Scaggs and Steely Dan and the Doobie Brothers and Daryl Hall and John Oates and a lot of really, really great soul music in the 1970s. Isley Brothers.
You got yourself a radio show.
Yes, I do. 20 years. 20 years on
Tell me about
WBOI. 8 to 11 every Sunday night, The Burnt Toast Show. And I play all sorts of music, and I play spoken word stuff, and I play anything. I want it to be like a movie in your mind. I want it to be different than like somebody's trying to sell you something. I worked in a record store for many years, and my big thing was, you've got to hear this record. And so I still get to carry on with the, you've got to hear this record thing, And sometimes it's an older thing that I discovered. Like, I'm always listening to music all week long, and I get up in the morning, and like this morning, I got up and I did a half an hour on the treadmill, and I've got the TV in front of the treadmill, and we've got YouTube on the TV. So I try to find new things that I haven't seen before
So you
on
can be able
YouTube.
to exercise with.
Absolutely. Why sit still all the time? I don't want to sit still all the time. I don't ever want to sit still.
Your students, what do you teach them after?
Well, I'm very into fundamentals. The correlation with baseball. You hit the ball, you throw the ball, you catch the ball. You've got to be able to know how to hold your sticks. You've got to be able to know how to sit at the drum set. You've got to know how to be able to play basic beats, and then we expand on that into whatever else they want. And I still work really, really hard at my playing now after 40 years. So there's always something new that I'm finding. That once again, you've got to check this out. Yeah. I'm the you've got to check this out guy.
I've got to check this out. a musician playing spoken word on the radio.
Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of spoken word?
Alan Watts, Kurt Vonnegut, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg.
How about newbies? People who are green, so to speak.
I like there are certain things that it depends on what I hear. You know what I mean? I'm always checking that stuff out too, and it's got to correlate with musically. And I'm really into the there are ideas that I feel like are getting lost in the 21st century. Don't you? Don't you feel that way?
I do,
Philosophical
of course.
ideas in particular, and things where you're not going to get a big idea about what we're actually doing here when you're staring at your phone all the time.
Well, I have done a spoken word song called Wolves, and it was, I had a Native American flautist who was Cherokee, and he played the background while I talked about wolves.
Very cool.
If you allow me, I can send it to you. You
That'd be
can see
fine.
what I've been doing.
That'd be fine. That'd be fine. And for me, it's just like I start on Tuesdays usually to put that together, and I try to put together sets. Pardon me, so that they all they tell a little story. Like I'll have instead of this idea that you play a song and then you talk. It's not about me. This is coming through me for the listener, hopefully, if I'm doing it right. And so the idea is that I'm putting together something like a 30 or 40 minutes, and then I talk to make sure that I recap what got played. There used to be a show called Music from the Hearts of Space that they had on National Public Radio in the 80s, and the guy would only talk at the end after playing all this music, and so you'd sort of have to keep track of it. And that's sort of where I'm coming from. I don't like this idea of, here I'm going to tell you what you should have liked about that. No. You can figure that out for yourself. If I played it, then it meant something. It meant something. There's no cereal. There's no filler.
I think the interesting thing, in other interviews, I've talked about art kind of following music. Well, I think in a lot of cases, music follows the visual art.
I think it's gone both ways. I think that in the 80s, art was definitely far ahead of music because you got into the whole money aspect of it, and everyone responded to that with MTV and so on like that. But art was still really blossoming in the 1980s. I'm not sure what's going on now, but I see that what I see is the writer William Burroughs talks about when something happens, when someone comes up with a new idea and it's artistic, whether it's theater or art or music or writing, when something happens, it tends to change the entire geography of all of it because it sort of opens up everyone's minds. He talks about sometimes, what was it, Gauguin, there were riots at some of his exhibitions, and now a child would look at it and really enjoy it, so it opened up people's mind. It opened up the culture. And I think no matter where it comes from, it all affects each other, the interconnectedness of all things, because it is all connected. Everything's connected.
I was going to ask you, we have a couple minutes left before
Sure. I'm sorry if I talk too much.
Oh, no.
I talk a lot.
You did excellent.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, is it like therapy, your music?
I don't know what I'd do without it. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like I'm sort of interchangeable with it. But there are. I mean, I really like everything that I just talked about. I like all of it. I like art. I like theater. I like film. I think it's all the same thing. And this is just particularly what I'm good at. I will say that when I go out and perform, and I really feel like I'm doing something, like I'm furthering a language that may or may not be there. You know, I don't want people to think of music as something that they saw on a game show.
Something that they
You know,
felt.
right? To me, it was so much bigger than that. And there were ideas when I came up. There were ideas being expressed that we couldn't just say to each other. You know what I mean? And that's still what music is about to me. But you still see it in film. You still see it in art. I don't know about literature. Literature's in a funny place right now. And so's music. And when I teach, it's really important that language get furthered as well, and that people recognize the creative part of themselves and really bring that out. You know what I mean?
Speaking about music, we're going to be showing a video. Let's talk into that and then say goodbye. We'll have to say goodbye. We're going to have a several-minute video on. Let's lead into that.
Okay. It was done in 2011 with some musicians that I was playing with at the time. Very, very fine musicians. Eric Clancy still has come back and is playing with me. He plays when Nick Bobet can't make it, but he's playing keyboards. Phil Sugar's playing guitar, and a great saxophone player named Matt Cashdollar, who plays in a number of bands around the area. And we're doing a Bill Withers song that was one of my favorite songs.
What's it called?
Use Me. I've been doing it for about 35 years.
Use Me?
Yeah.
So we're going to switch into that, and we'll see you next week. I hope you do like the song, because I know I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you both.
You bet.
Well, my friend, it is their appointed duty. They keep trying to tell me all you want to do is use me. Yeah, have my answer. Yeah, the whole that use me stuff. Yes, I won't spread the news that I feel this good getting you. Just keep on using me till you use me up. Yeah, till you use me up. Well, my brother sat me writing down and he talked to me. He told me, yeah, that I ought not to let you just walk all over me. And I'm sure he meant well. No, but when our talk was through, I say, hey there, brother, if you only knew, you wish that you were in my shoes. Just keep on using me till you use me up. Yeah, until you use me up, baby. Well, it's true, you really do abuse me. You get me in a crowd of high-class people, and then you act real rude to me. Hey, but oh, baby, when you love me, can't get enough. I say I won't spread the news that if I feel this good getting you, just keep on using me till you use me up. Yeah, till you use me up. Just me. Talking about you using me, but it all depends on what you do. It ain't so bad the way you're using me, 'cause I'm sure I'm using you to do the thing you do. Do thing, good thing with it.
So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us all.